This is my fourth time trying to record a video this week. The first time I had my mic off. The second time the video files got corrupted when I was editing. And the third time, I don't know, it was just like a really low energy, weird, like slow kind of day, and it looked terrible. So, where was I going with this? Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. So I woke up today and I was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just film. I'm going to make a good video today. I'm going to talk about something I'm passionate about. And then these guys right here, that ruined my day again. And after a big loss, like the one we took today, there's only one thing that can, make my day better. And that's movies. That's art. I love art. I'm a big, big, big proponent of art. So I thought, who's the most like artsy weirdo, like, okay, not artsy, but like, who's the most successful nerd in the world? It's probably Christopher Nolan. So here's a video about Christopher Nolan. Let's go. All right, so I made this list a while ago, and I kind of completely agree with everything that, the order of the films that I put the films in back then. And there's one big difference, and we'll talk about that at the end. So, to get started, I love Christopher Nolan. I've always been a big fan of his films. Growing up, seeing Batman Begins for the first time and losing my mind. I just love Batman. I wasn't the biggest Batman Begins fan. It's just that, wow, here's this live action, really cool, like actual good Batman. Because for me, before that, Batman content that wasn't comics was just, the animated series or the Lego Batman games. Yeah, I'm being serious about that. I'd never seen a Batman like a live action Batman film before Batman Begins. So, being the nerd that I am, Christopher Nolan brought me something very beautiful. And yeah, ever since then, watching the rest of his films, and now as I've grown older and become more of a nerd when it comes to this film stuff, and more of a, self-proclaimed critic or whatever. Christopher Nolan has really touched me. Okay, that sounds weird. His art has reached me and connected with me well. That's probably a better way to say that. So, him being one of my favorite directors, him being one of my favorite creators, in general. Here's my list. It's so awkward, man. Goddamn. All right, so for this, I'm gonna be just rating his full-length films because I don't think Doodlebug has a place in his filmography. As it stands for his feature films. So, yeah, we're just gonna be talking about his full-length films. Starting with at the bottom, number 12 is Insomnia. Like, look, I'm sorry. I know a lot of people love this film. I know a lot of people love the performances from Pacino and Williams here. But this just didn't connect for me, man. I think it's super slow. I didn't really connect with the main protagonist or the antagonist. I honestly don't remember any names from this film, even though I watched it, pretty sure this year or last year. The date will be here. It's just kind of, look, I think it's really ironic that it's called Insomnia, and I'm sorry to make a pun here, but this movie put me to sleep. Not literally, because a movie could never make me fall asleep. I love film too much. But, it was just so boring, and I don't think it's representative of Nolan's work because it doesn't have that style yet. It's kind of like watching Wes Anderson's Bottle Rocket. It's kind of Wes Anderson, but it doesn't really have that style It's doesn't have that characterization. That's a tough word. Characterization of Wes Anderson films, and I feel the same way with Insomnia. I feel like Insomnia doesn't have any of that weird Christopher Nolan-ness that we're all like well accustomed to by now. It's just a film that I think lacks in any sort of impact for me, and that's why I have it at the bottom. Sorry, Insomnia. Next up at number 11 is Following. This is Christopher Nolan's first feature. It's around an hour. It's actually really good. But, you know, in a filmography of someone who's made so many great films, it has to be, you know, something's got to be at the bottom, other than Insomnia, but something's got to be at the bottom, right? And for me, it's Following. I think it's good. I think it's effective. I think it's a clever use of, you know, the very minimal resources that Nolan had at the time. Yeah, it's just a fun watch. It's a really good concept, you know. I think the movie starts up with just a guy saying that, you know, one day I just started following people. That's it. I don't want to spoil this one because I think it's really cool, like the trajectory that the film gets to eventually, you know, of here's a guy, he just started following people one day when he's British, which is, yeah, but, you know, you can see where that goes and how much it changes his life, basically. And, you know, the misfit characters that he ends up meeting and, you know, dealing with. I think Following's really good, and it just set up Christopher Nolan for his, you know, skyrocketing career. You know, Following wasn't a massive success or anything, but I think it does have those Christopher Nolan moments, and especially with the non-linear storytelling on show, you know, it's just something that I feel like it's a film that actually does kind of have that Nolan-ness to it, and it's something that Insomnia lacks. I need to stop shitting on Insomnia, man. Next up at number 10, you know, I was talking about Batman earlier. I'm really sorry, Nolan. It's The Dark Knight Rises. I know. Like, it's kind of a trend to shit on this movie these days. But I like this film. It's a good film. It's just not great. And I think to rank up and succeed as a film in Christopher Nolan's filmography, you have to be great. And Dark Knight Rises just isn't that. It's really weird and spotty with its plot. It's kind of all over the place. It relies on you just completely turning off your brain for some really, really big moments and plot points throughout. I don't like the word plot hole, but yeah, kind of it's all over the place. The pacing's pretty weird, and at the end it just kind of feels like a parody of what the Nolan's Batman had become, and not actually a Nolan Batman film. Obviously it was extremely affected by the death of Heath Ledger and the fact that this was probably gonna be more Joker. I know that there's some script out there or some like plot outline of how this movie would have worked with Heath Ledger's Joker. But yeah, there's no use crying over spilled milk, right? The movie that we got is the movie that we got, and I just don't think it's great. And I'll never forgive whoever's idea it was to just let this take just stay in the film, like, again, and one more time, and another time for good measure. Why did that stay in the film? Okay, that has nothing to do with, I mean, that has a little bit to do with why I don't really love this film, but yeah, I just think that Dark Knight Rises is kind of a mess, and some films are a mess and it works to their benefit. Dark Knight Rises is not one of those films. Next up at number 9 is Dunkirk. Okay, now this is where we start with great films. Dunkirk is great. Dunkirk is a really, really, really good movie. There's just so much like impressive action pieces. What the hell is the word I'm looking for? Why am I struggling so much today? It's just really impressive. the things that are on show in this film, like the combat, the ships just flowing over again, the fact that no one can understand what Tom Hardy's saying in back-to-back films on the list, yeah, I think Dunkirk could have been like one of my favorite films ever if I felt like I could connect with the characters. I feel like the non-linear storytelling and like the way the timeline is set up in this film, it's interesting, but it doesn't really work. It's another film that's messy, but I think most of its flaws are extremely outweighed by how bombastic and how beautiful the visuals are in this film. War never looked so good, right? It's messed up. Cillian Murphy being shell shocked is really, really beautiful for some reason. Just Cillian Murphy is. I feel like anything this guy does is just beautiful, right? Harry Styles. I don't know if I'm not really with like casting news or like pulp culture and like stuff like that, like behind the scenes, like, oh, here's why Nolan hired Harry Styles. I have no clue. I'm not bothered to Google it. But if Harry Styles is something that Nolan really had to have in this film for some reason, have him like get shot or something, dude. Like, just it's like that, like when Justin Bieber was on CSI. Just get shot, dude. That's fun. But no, he's in this film and he can't act, and it's really, really annoying, and it just pulled me out of the movie every time he was on screen. I think that's a little like small nitpicky reason I don't mess with this film that much, but it is a reason. It's a genuine reason. I feel like in such an immersive film, it sucks to get pulled out of it like that, and it generally did pull me out of it. So sorry, Harry Styles. At number 8, we have a movie I just rewatched today, and that's Tenet. Listen, stop hating on Tenet. You guys are assholes. You're evil. How dare you? Tenet is good, dude. It's really good. It's great, even. Tenet is a great film. It does suffer from over exposition. It does suffer from, sound design that probably only sounds good if you're watching this in a 70 millimeter full IMAX that only exists in like 8 places in the world or something. But yeah, other than that, just turn on some subtitles, watch the film, enjoy it, because I think a spy film that's this convoluted in its approach to how the protagonist actually deals with the things going on. Because look, it's kind of like James Bond, if James Bond was written by, like, the James Bond like sequence was written by a James Bond villain, because how like messed up and what's the word I'm looking for here? How sporadic the information is that's given to our protagonist. It's insane. Like, as the audience watching along and trying to figure out what the hell Tenet even is, like what's going on, why is the bullet going backwards? That stuff, it's fun. I like it. It's just a really complicated way to make a spy movie. And, sometimes complicated is good. And I think it really works for Tenet. I think John David Washington is fantastic. He's a great actor, and he's really, really good in this film. He shines. Every line from him is beautiful. He's fully believable as a spy. He's fully believable as the CIA agent. He's really believable as just an overall badass. Also, what more can I say? Robert Pattinson is fantastic in this. He does his job so well. And no spoilers. I promise, no spoilers. That I feel like that scene at the end of the film with Robert Pattinson's character is really effective. Just the way that the protagonist and him speak to each other, it's beautiful. And the way it all clicks together, like once you've been watching this like puzzle like get put put together by the protagonist, and finally seeing the complete picture at the end. It's beautiful, isn't it? Tenet is such a beautiful film. And in the end, it's about love, dude. It's not even like some really complicated film. It's just about love. Nolan really loves love, and I love love too. And number 7, we have Batman Begins. Just the idea and the balls of Christopher Nolan, this guy who's only made a few feature films and who hasn't really made like a big blockbuster, to just show up to Warner Bros. And be like, yo, here's Batman, but let's make him realistic and grounded and stuff. And then just have it not be realistic and grounded, because visually sure it is, and like technology sure it is, but like the things that happen in these movies is crazy, dude. None of this stuff is realistic, and that's dope. Like if you want to trick people into thinking here's realistic and grounded Batman, and then just have some crazy shit happen, then I'm all for it. Because Batman Begins is a really good origin story. That whole like part of the film where Bruce Wayne is like learning who he is as a man, and kind of like building himself up with the League of Shadows to become the Batman. I think that's beautiful. I think Cillian Murphy as the Scarecrow it's like so cool. She's such a fun characterization of the Scarecrow. And, you know, Cillian Murphy's just a W, right? He's just like a living W. And I don't think I've ever seen Cillian Murphy in anything and been like, I didn't like it. Because I love Cillian Murphy. Cillian Murphy's so good in everything that he does. Christian Bale is also so good at everything that he does. I think, look, I'm going to be honest here. I don't think he's the perfect Batman. I don't think he's the perfect Bruce Wayne. But for what Nolan wants these films to be, and for what they end up being, I think Christian Bale is effective, and that's all he has to be, right? Liam Neeson is hilarious in this. Like, it's actually kind of funny what Liam Neeson is, right? Like him and you know what I'm talking about. Come on, man. We all know what I'm talking about. Like having the guy from Taken just show up and be this like mentor / antagonist character. It's awesome, dude. It's really good. Christopher Nolan is really good, dude. Well, I keep saying good. How many times have I said good this video? I'm not counting it. You sure won't either. So I guess we'll never know. Yeah, I love the Batman Begins. I love movie good. Next up at number 6 is Memento. Memento is fantastic. I think this is one of those this is one of those films that define an artist, right? Making something like this about this dude with amnesia, and where like with this scene goes forward in time, and this scene is like backwards because it's like the scene that's before it, right? And just the way that the film is sequenced, and the black and white and the colored scenes, and the way that the protagonist, god damn, I forgot his name. Just the way that he plays the role so well. The way that Max is just brought in as the secondary character, and then the chick is brought in at this secondary character, and the way they interact with each other, it's just so clever. Memento is such a clever film. And like even visually, like even to a casual audience, like here's a dude who covered himself in tattoos because his amnesia is so bad that he forgets like instantly, so he has to like look at the tattoos on his arms to like believe things, or to like retain information. Like it's just photographs and tattoos. It's just so good. Memento is such a good film, and it's so gritty, it's so brutal, and the ending is just so wow. I mean, look, out of all these movies, I know I have it at number 6, so that means I have 5 Nolan movies that I love more than it. But out of all these movies, if you've never seen a Nolan movie, I think it's Memento. You have to watch Memento. It's ridiculous. And now that I'm saying that, I might... No, but look, looking at the rest of this list, those are all better movies. It's just that Memento is that good. How the hell do you have 5 movies that are better than Memento in your filmography? Nolan, man. And number 5, we have The Prestige. I mean, dude, this movie's crazy. Grand slam showings from both Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman. Scarlett Johansson coming up with like, ridiculous characterization. It's just so fun. The Prestige is such a fun movie, but it's a thriller that has you on the edge of your seat and is stabbing you. It's like watching The Prestige and trying to figure out what the hell is going on and trying to figure out like who's right between our two magicians and the magic trick. You know, trying to figure out how he does it. It's a simple concept, like on paper, right? It's like, here's a magician and here's a rival magician. This magician can do a really, really difficult trick. This guy really wants to figure out how the hell he does it. And there's like a woman in between that's like assistant to him and assistant to him. And then this guy has a troubled relationship with his wife that's like hurting his career, but the only thing that seems to matter to him is the fact that he wants to one up this guy, but this guy wants to one up that guy by knowing what the hell his trick is, and that's it. You know, it's just two dudes competing, but like, you know, it's like a sword measuring contest. Who has the bigger sword? Let's see. All right, this movie's good. All right, it's really good, and I think the concept alone is gripping and it's engaging enough to stick with it. And then Nikola Tesla appears in this film out of nowhere, and all the stuff that happens with Nikola Tesla happens, and you're just like, what? And then like the hat thing happens. I'm really trying not to spoil this film, but if you've seen the film, when the hat things happen, the hat thing, that, you know, the hat, you know this thing, the hat, when that happens, I'm just like, what? I remember like being in complete shock seeing that. I don't know if there are a lot of films that made me feel the way that the ending of The Prestige made me feel. And I think that's something that Nolan has consistently been really good at, is having impactful endings. Most of his films end well, and they end with something that you think about, something that keeps you like, you know, bringing the movie up in your brain even like months after you've seen it. Hell, it's been years. It's been actual years since I've seen Inception for the first time. Well, you know, a lot of years since I've seen Inception for the first time, and I still thinking about that ending all the time. And speaking of Inception, it's number 4. It's next up on the list. How the hell did they even think of this? Like, Christopher and Jonathan Nolan, what went on in their childhood? Who taught them? What school teacher taught these guys literature? What drama classes did these guys take? Because I'm pretty sure they didn't have formal filmmaking, education at the undergraduate level. But, dude, so something, you know, must have gone on in their childhood. They must have read some really good books or taught by a really passionate teacher. Because how the hell do you think of something like Inception? Is it like adapted? Is it inspired by something? I don't know. But Inception is that insane of a concept to me. And okay, maybe like you're just like, oh, to me you're dumb. What the hell? It's just a movie like, oh, what if we could control people's dreams and extort them in their dreams? But it's more than that. Like on a philosophical level, it's more than that. It's the dream, and it's within a dream, and how time, for some reason, is like whatever this movement means, you know, it's just played with. Christopher Nolan has always loved time. I think time is something that really matters to this man, and you know, time well spent making movies like Inception, man. Leonardo DiCaprio is so good in this film. And some actors, like no matter what, you can't forget that it's just a dude acting. But I think Cobb in Inception, that genuinely feels like a real man. I think Leonardo DiCaprio, even like how big he is as an actor, and all the scandals he's been through in his career, at like the base level, this is a very talented actor. He's very good at his job, and Inception is one of the highlights of his career for me. It's so good. I love the supporting cast in this. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, you got Paige, you got Tom Hardy, Ken Watanabe. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Just even Cillian Murphy. How have I gone this far without talking about Michael Caine? Michael Caine. I love Michael Caine. All right, my camera died, so if the angle looks kind of different, I'm sorry. Where were we? Oh yeah, so we were talking about Inception. Inception is such a good film because of it's the little things, other than the big set pieces, other than the crazy concepts, other than the fact that no one really knows, what that means. The little character moments, those are the things that make Christopher Nolan films for me. Other than this like crazy timeline stuff, the things that make these films so endearing is like when Cobb goes down into limbo and sees Ken Watanabe's character. It's when Tom Hardy says, "Think a little bigger," and pulls out, a grenade launcher. It's when Ariadne, draws out that maze for the first time. It's when Joseph Gordon-Levitt is running on walls while, spinning and stuff. It's those kind of things that make these movies for me. It's Cobb hugging his children at the end. It's small, beautiful things. And I think Inception has a lot of those, aside from the obvious that everyone talks about. Most people agree that this is the best comic book film of all time. Most people agree that this is Nolan's best film. Most people agree that this is one of the most important, character acting films ever made. Of course, I'm talking about The Dark Knight. I would agree with most of those things. I would agree that The Dark Knight is probably one of the best films ever made. I would agree that it's probably the best comic book film ever made. However, I don't think it's Nolan's best film. There are two films that edge it out, but let's not talk about them. Let's talk about The Dark Knight right now. The Dark Knight is a revelation. The Dark Knight was everything that your parents told you was bad about comic books, growing up. What the school bullies told you that being a nerd was going to do to you. The Dark Knight just demolishes those assumptions. The fact that Christopher Nolan and everyone else attached to this film was able to make a modern masterpiece out of a Batman story is something that should be applauded and celebrated every day. The massive lengths that this film took, the leaps that it did, I don't really believe in award shows, but some people say it's because he died. I think he would have won anyway. For me, at least, Heath Ledger winning that Oscar, it really put superhero films on the map. That's probably a bad thing these days because of what's going on with Marvel and Disney's unlimited money, but it mattered in 2008. It mattered because growing up as a nerd, growing up as a guy who just read comics all day, this movie mattered. The fact that it resonated with so many audiences, the fact that everyone in the whole world does this stupid Joker impression, it made a really big impact on the culture, and it made being a nerd kind of cool. Maybe you're saying I'm overstretching the power of one film, but I genuinely do believe these things, and we have Christopher Nolan to thank for that. Casting Heath Ledger, everyone knows the story, known as one of the, biggest, most controversial castings. Oh, you casted this, pretty white boy to be the Joker. How? And then he comes out and makes the most iconic, film character since Darth Vader. it's just something legendary and something to be applauded. You know, rest in peace, Heath Ledger. Thank you for the beautiful work you did on this film. Bro, I'm getting emotional, bro. Fucking, I love this film, dude. I love The Dark Knight. I love Batman. I love the Joker, and I've always had, you know, and I always will. Growing up with the Batman, growing up with the Joker, and you know, finally seeing these characters, you know, on the big screen when I was a kid, it was, you know, it was a big moment, you know. And when it came back to theaters last year and I watched it again in theaters, it was still a big moment. It just solidified just how good this film is. It's a modern masterpiece. It really is. You know, from the set pieces, the philosophical stuff, to the character moments, to like, you know, the balance between good and evil, to how, you know, how far are you willing to go to protect people. Even like the stuff with Lucius Fox, you know, near the end of the film, where him and Batman are discussing about, like, you know, this, well, basically the Patriot Act, you know. There's a lot of, you know, really big ideas in this, you know, comic book film. And I think that's beautiful. In the end of the film, you know, this is a theme with Nolan, isn't it? Love always wins. You know, the boat. Love really does always win. At number 2, all right. So, look, for a long time I had this one at number 1. You know, but the more I think about it and how it affected me as a person, I think it's number 2, because we'll talk about number 1. So number 2 on the list is Oppenheimer. Ever since I saw it in the theater, you know, opening day, in IMAX, sitting, you know, near the back, just like Nolan intended, I knew this movie was, you know, life changing. It might sound like I'm exaggerating here, but I genuinely wonder, will I ever see a film as good as Oppenheimer? A film like this can have so much meaning. The fact that, you know, the guy that we all said, well, Nolan makes good films, but his dialogue kind of sucks. Made a 3-hour film of dialogue, and it's beautiful. It's so impactful. The music, like Ludwig Göransson is an absolute wizard. Cillian Murphy has one of the most like beautiful performances ever. Like, you genuinely believe that is Robert J. Oppenheimer. You genuinely believe that he is struggling. You believe that this is a man who is feeling all those things, you know, being the father of the atomic bomb. It's messed up. And, you know, I know memes online these days are like, oh, I made a big bomb and killed a bunch of people, I'm sad. You know, listen, what they did and how Oppenheimer feels about what they did, probably at the time was justified. You know, you had to beat the Nazis somehow. But, you know, with how evil governments can be and how evil war can be, it does take a toll on people. And just because someone can do something, should they? You know, it's a tale as old as time. It's an idea that isn't anything new. But I think it's portrayed so well in this film. And, you know, Christopher Nolan's always had his actors. He's always had his group of actors. And, you know, Cillian Murphy never got to lead. And the fact that he leads in this, and he leads such an incredible performance, and the fact that they pulled the best performance out of Robert Downey Jr., even though he just spent like a billion years being Disney's like playboy, and now he's gonna go back to being Disney's playboy for reportedly $100 million. Holy shit. Yeah, just that he took that break in between to make Dolittle, and then to make one of the best films ever made. And then he's back to schlock, but, you know, let's forget that for a second. I think Oppenheimer is beautiful. I cried in that theater, not out of emotion of what's going on in the story. I think it was more an emotion of what's going on a technical level and on art level. I love art. It's the most important thing in the world to me. And to see art that good being made me emotional. I don't think I've ever said this before, but I did cry in that theater. In that scene where the whole world holds their breath. That scene really got me emotional. And I'm not sorry. But Nolan should be sorry because that's not the only time he's ever made me cry. As we go on to our number one. This is a movie that had me crying for a good hour of its, 2.5, 3 hour runtime. At least an hour of this film, I was crying. I didn't watch Interstellar when it was first released. I didn't watch it anytime near when it was first released. I watched Interstellar last year when it came back to theaters and IMAX. It was always a film I wanted to watch. I've seen every other Nolan film, so I had to watch Interstellar at some point. But I don't know, something about the film just... I felt like the right moment didn't come. And then my friend was like, this movie's coming in theaters. You are going to watch it. You must. So I did. And I spent the first hour really intrigued. Really, immersed into the world that was built. And then I spent the next hour bawling my eyes out in the theater, genuinely. If there's footage of me crying in that theater, I'll ask my friend about it. But yeah, I'm an emotional guy. Sure, I'll say it up front. I am an emotional guy, but I've never really been the guy to cry watching movies. I've only been a handful of movies at most that have made me cry, 3 or 4. But Interstellar, I was bawling like a little baby. And I think that's why it tops the list for me. Emotionally, it just hit me in all the right ways. The music, the acting, the story. Sure, the dialogue isn't great, but who the hell cares, man? When a film is that beautiful, when it's that ambitious, it shows you space in the most desolate and messed up way. And it can make you feel that emotional. It can make you feel all those little things. Just the story of Matthew McConaughey and his daughter in this film is just beautiful. For me, I don't think I've ever resonated this much with a story emotionally. Just absolutely crying my eyes out. Yeah, I think visually it's probably the most impressive film I've ever seen. The music, the score by Hans Zimmer and his team is just next level. The performance from Matthew McConaughey is elite. I loved the conflicts. I loved the ideas. I loved the pain. I loved the love. And it always comes back to love. Christopher Nolan, everyone thinks he's this pretentious snob who loves time travel, and he probably is. But at his core, he is a man who loves love. Most of his movies are about love. And, Interstellar is a film about love. And I love love. I've said it before in this video, I'll say it again, and I'll probably say it again in the future. I love love. Christopher Nolan is a man who loves love, so he's a man he's a man who I love. Well, his art. I love his art. I don't know him personally, but I love his art. Interstellar is unbelievable. I love Interstellar. I'm probably gonna watch Interstellar soon and cry again soon because it just feels good. Thank you for watching. I know this video is kind of a mess. I've been rambling, but yeah, I just needed to talk about some art that I love, and I've been kind of shaky recently. But hey, we aren't always perfect, are we? I'll be back to being perfect soon. Don't you worry about it. And my camera died again. I just want to say, I know it's been a while. Hopefully, it won't be this long till the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.